Hello, this is Ken, your podcast preacher. Welcome back to my podcast, Deep Waters. This podcast is brought to you by Applied Strengths Ministry, where we believe working together in our strengths is the effect of working out the will and calling of God in and through our lives. The title of this message is Saul for President. Well, as I was thinking about this election coming up, I saw a story in the Bible that seems to fit the bill perfectly. I think for anyone who is to vote in this election, you should consider the story and remember God will give us the desires of our heart. And you can thank Him that He holds back some of those desires. So just a quick bit of background. I was working on my second election message. When in reading a book, I decided to put that off for a minute to begin writing what I thought was a more currently relevant message titled, No Supernatural Works, No Salvation. And I just might be taking credit for something that God is actually doing. But now then, as I was bringing that message to a close in writing so that I could record it, I was moved to throwing in this shorty message, together for no other reason than the short time before the elections. My initial title was to be Kamala Harris, but then the scripture came to me regarding a time when Israel wanted a human king rather than to continue following a King of Kings. And so I changed the message to Saul for President. Now it would be totally corny, except for the fact of how accurate the story of him becoming king is to our selecting a president for today. Oh, you will see it as I read the scripture and then break it down just a little bit. Now, no matter who you want to vote for, you should keep your initial spiritual antenna up, as I believe that had Israel kept theirs up, they would have decided to keep the King of Kings as their leader. Well, Mr. Podcast Preacher, how are we going to vote to ask Jesus to be our king for this country? He should have already been your king. And so if we are to walk in his ways, and he may not ever have even participated in voting, but for the sake of argument, we at least should ask him to lead us in wisdom. Does it matter in these days who you vote for? Yes. But hopefully without trying to sway you, at least in this shorty, I will have encouraged you to take this season very seriously. Okay, but I already know that many do not operate in the wisdom of God, and therefore cannot also see or hear him. It is very obvious by the words and behaviors of the majority of Christians who cannot even have a political discussion without getting angry, so much so that their noses just fall off their faces. Listen, Proverbs 29:2. When the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. Now that can apply to a woman too, which I don't believe it should be that way. But that's just me. Well, it's in the Bible too. It states man, but you no doubt understand that it is indeed talking about a woman. Not that God approves of a woman being in a position of authority over a man, but he does not hold the world to his laws, only his people. 1 Timothy 2:12-14. And I do not permit a woman to teach or to have authority over a man, but to be in silence. For Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not deceived, but the woman being deceived fell into transgression. Funny, I just put that in there so that I wouldn't get any negative feedback as to why I would say that. Okay, so now that we are clear, this is a shorty that I feel that something needs to be said, as I am concerned that in this very hour, this very story may play out in America for whatever time we have left before Jesus returns. And the story I'm talking about is that scripture that I'm about to read. What I've learned about people is that they are always the smartest ones in the room, right up until the time that they are forced to stand in line for food or for their death ticket. Listen, ask God for the wisdom when it comes to selecting our next president. Oh, to act stupid or immature in these days is a bad idea. America can get worse, a whole lot worse, than it is right now. God states of Christians, you will know who they are by what they produce. Yes, I paraphrased it. He used the word fruit. If you are, for example, telling everyone that when you come into power as a leader, that you will do this and that to change the very things that you are now allowing to exist, then as someone who has a brain, you are obligated to ask how that is. Yes, it is okay for you to think. I know perhaps I have watched too many videos of people who, by all accounts, were raised by our escaped sea monkeys. I don't know if this is for shock value or to drive up the hits, bells, and clings, or if it is actually the very next of whom we will be handing over this planet to. Now, not all peeps are overly dramatic, but there is enough now to be concerning. In truth, we got here because a whole bunch of you thought it would be the right thing to vote for who is now in office. Strangely, and I'm now just being, of course, sarcastic, but I have not seen one apologetic email. Nope, but I am fearful, as those same intelligent voters will continue the descent, and without so much as a care for what the results could be. They will do it anyways. I will read the scripture story from the Transliteration Bible called The Message, written by Eugene Peterson. 1 Samuel chapter 8. When Samuel got to be an old man, he set his sons up as judges in Israel. His firstborn son was named Joel, the name of his second, Abijah. They were assigned duty in Beersheba. But his sons didn't take after him. They were out for what they could get for themselves, taking bribes, corrupting justice. Fed up, all the elders of Israel got together and confronted Samuel at Ramah. They presented their case. Look, you're an old man, and your sons aren't following in your footsteps. Here's what we want you to do. Appoint a king to rule us, just like everybody else. When Samuel heard their demand, give us a king to rule us, he was crushed. How awful, Samuel prayed to God. God answered Samuel, go ahead and do what they're asking. They're not rejecting you. They've rejected me as their king. From the day that I brought them out of Egypt until this very day, they have been behaving like this, leaving me for other gods. And now they're doing it to you. So let them have their own way, but warn them of what they're in for. Tell them the way kings operate, just what they're likely to get from a king. So Samuel told them, delivering God's warning to the people who were asking him to give them a king. He said, this is the way the King of Kings you're talking about operates. He'll take your sons and make soldiers of them, charity, cavalry, infantry, regimented in battalions and squadrons. He'll put some to forced labor on his farms, plowing and harvesting, and others to make either weapons of war or chariots, in which he can ride in luxury. He'll put your daughters to work as beauticians and waitresses and cooks. He'll conscript your best fields, vineyards, and orchards, and hand them over to his special friends. He'll tax your harvest and vintage to support his extensive bureaucracy. Your prize workers and best animals he'll take for his own use. He'll lay a tax on your flocks, and you'll end up no better than slaves. The day will come when you will cry in desperation because of this king you so much wanted for yourselves. But don't expect God to answer. But the people wouldn't listen to Samuel. Nope, they said, we will have us a king to rule us. Then we will be just like all the other nations. Our king will rule us and lead us to fight our battles. Samuel took in what they said and rehearsed it with God. God told Samuel, do what they say. Make them a king. Then Samuel dismissed the men of Israel. Go home, each of you to your own city. Okay, so we should only address the parts of the story that line up with what could be or has been since our last election round. Appoint a king to rule us just like everybody else. So it is possible that America become like everybody else. And before you answer that, let's see if we can get you to do some research as to why people are not trying to break into China or Israel. It is possible that we could actually become like everybody else. Your vote will answer that question. They've rejected me as their king. Have we too rejected God? Yes, be it by way of the lost, those who, by the way, are in greater numbers than any time in the past, because the church is not doing its job, which is to set the captives free. But also, yes, back to the churches. We have become spiritually ineffective. I defer you to my website, appliedstrengthsministry.org, to check out my podcast, which has many messages dealing with the church conditions of today. Well, of the last 100 years. Leaving me for other gods. Okay, so really, have we left God for other gods in America? Yes, even those who call themselves Christians. How weird. But yes, in more specific terms, we have become voice boxes at best, and not God action warriors. Even if we haven't left God for false gods, many have simply resigned to attend a church to hit on the women or to get free coffee, or to attend a circus, which comes complete with a potluck lunch, which can be free to you because, well, no one really cares. Warn them of what they're in for. Now, this is answered every day on those YouTube shorts. No, not on mainstream media, as they all work for the same devil. It only takes a spiritual baby on powdered milk to discern that fact. Listen to the narrative and note how there are some huge concerns. We all know how to answer questions, right? Well, see if you can find them within both parties. Listen, if you vote with your emotions, then you will have plenty to cry about come 2025. Oh, this is not a quest to separate the reds and the blues. The devil divides, see? This is why we have a two-party system. Yes, this is even why we have denominations and non-denominational churches. And if we go a bit higher, it would be why we have a Catholic church and a Protestant church. I guess you could say that the devil is in the details, but not so much with some politicians. He'll take your sons and make soldiers of them. Charity, cavalry, infantry, regimented, in battalions and squadrons. Are we not at the very serious brink of war? If we go to war, this generation will feed the machine, and let me assure you that you will not like facing death when in your heart of hearts you know that it didn't have to be this way. He'll put some to forced labor on his farms, plowing and harvesting, and others to make either weapons of war or chariots in which he can ride in luxury. So when the taxes go up, so that you start to regulate how often and when you can go to the grocery store, you will know that this is not living the same life of luxury that your politicians are living. It's trickery, you see. They raised minimum wage so that in order for the businessmen to remain open, they had to raise their prices on whatever they sell. Well, who then got the raise? You make more money, but now everything costs more, so you are now spending more to live, and yes, paying more taxes. He'll conscript your best fields, vineyards, and orchards and hand them over to his special friends. Thoughts? So we have in this very quacky season found out that politicians and the like go into public service living a nice middle-class lifestyle, but then retire multimillionaires. You see, it's not that they think we won't do anything about this. It would seem as though some could care less about who was paying for their posh public servant lifestyle. But that is the game, right? Lobbyists and pocket liners. What to do, what to do. He'll tax your harvest and vintage to support his extensive bureaucracy. More government, because we are right now grooming the younger generations, teaching them that government exists to be a help. Oh, this plan has always failed. Yes, it has a 100% failure rate, and yet people want bigger government with more programs to help and assist them with this newfangled lifestyle. We've had several generations now that feel like entitlement is part of their DNA. I got a raise after 14 years, meaning I was doing the job and finally started getting paid for it 14 years later. And it dumped me into a new tax bracket, so that I had to pay nearly $8,000 more a year. My raise was almost totally consumed in the taxes, and I worked for government. Yikes. He'll lay a tax on your flocks, and you'll end up no better than slaves. More taxes. Yep, even more than we have now because government doesn't make money. It collects money. Your money, $10,000 to an illegal alien. If I had $10,000, I could actually pay off some debt, which I've been actually trying to do. So I'm not just saying it so that I can then get the money and go do something else. But you see, when I got a so-called promotion and began to earn a salary for doing what I was already doing over the last 14 years, I was thinking that I could now get out of debt the rest of the way and go on about my business of retiring. But I didn't see the trap, and bam, my raise now goes to the feds. So they got my raise. So when I got promoted, they got a raise. I don't understand. Do you think this plays out every day on this planet? Yep, but it can be balanced. But it's not right now, you see. The day will come when you will cry out in desperation because of this king you so much wanted for yourselves. But don't expect God to answer. Wow, this is crazy. God is going to hold us accountable for our ignorance. All right, so like the scripture above, right? Proverbs 29:2, when the righteous are in authority, people rejoice. But when a wicked man rules, the people groan. So you might say, what if we don't have a righteous man? I would say pray and ask God. Talk to others without blowing up in disagreements. Grow up. How about that? Why don't we just grow up? We used to be able to have conversations. We don't have them anymore because everybody's mad about what? I don't know. They're just mad. If you are emotionally challenged, go online and watch the videos all by yourself, but at least watch them with an open mind. You see, no one else will call you wrong if you agree with something stupid. But if you can call yourself wrong for agreeing with something stupid, I do it all the time myself, then at least we can get somewhere. If all of the mainstream is saying and using the same narrative, for example, being accusatory towards one person, and but acting like they work for the other side, then that is a concern to be paying attention to. If you are inclined to throw away your vote because you're stupid or lazy, then please take a trip over to Israel and take a look at what could possibly be your future. And you might want to take a slingshot. I hear it's getting pretty rowdy over there. Now, I didn't realize how close to this biblical story that this last 4 years has already been. It even shows what the next 4 years could be like if we vote stupidly and by way of our emotions. But so you should know that I did this message simply because it popped into my head a few times, and so I thought that maybe I should say something. So I feel that it's not a thus saith the Lord, but that you should hope that I am right on that point. All kidding and sarcasm aside, even if you do not have kids, consider how your vote could change the world for them, or even for you, forever. Yes, God is coming back, and I hope it is very soon, like in 2025. But if not, I still want to roam free as I ever have been. No doubt you do too. Well, that's it for today. Remember, it's not what you find wrong or disagree with regarding these messages, but what you can take away from them. Together we can do more to impact the kingdom than if we work alone. Let's flip the script and kill, steal, and destroy the works of the enemy and create space for the light of light to shine through into people's lives. Plant a seed and click on the like and subscribe button. Let's build this ministry together. Thanks, and see you next time in Deep Waters.